I wholeheartedly welcome dear Dr. M. Durai, our administrative officer and former principal, to welcome the gathering. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. எல்லோருக்கும் நமஸ்காரம். அனைவருக்கும் நீலகிரி கலை அறிவியல் கல்லூரியின் வணக்கங்கள் மற்றும் நல் வாழ்த்துக்கள். I am Dr. M. Durai, Nilgiri College Admin Officer. Nilgiri College of Arts and Science, established in the year 2012, affiliated to our Bharatiya University, backed with ISO 9001-2015 certified institution, and recognized with 2F 12B status from University Grants Commission. I am very proud to say that our Bharatiya University is among 13th rank among the Indian universities and around 880 in the university in the world. Top 10 promising colleges of arts and commerce group in India by Higher Education Review magazine of our Nilgiri College. Presently, our college is having 9 UG programs and 3 PG programs. PG and Research Department, in association with IQAC, organized a 3 days global virtual conclave on national education policy or new education policy. Today is the second day. In this auspicious occasion, it is a moment of great privilege and honor for me to extend a hearty welcome to all of you today in the memorable event. At this juncture, I wholeheartedly welcome our Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Dr. P. Kaliraj Sir, Vice Chancellor, Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, for this occasion. Sir is also a member of Foreign ICMR, Emeritus Medical Scientist, former Interim Vice Chancellor of Anna University, Director, Center for Biotechnology, Anna University. It is a great honor and we are much happy to see you, a resource person here, sir, in Nilgiri College. Nilgiri College is really blessed with your presence, Professor. In spite of your busy schedule, in the first working day on Monday, accepted our invitation over phone and presence here to grace the occasion. நம்ம மகாகவி பாரதியார் சொன்னது போல எண்ணிய முடிதல் வேண்டும், நல்லவே எண்ணல் வேண்டும், திண்ணிய நெஞ்சம் வேண்டும், தெளிந்த நல் அறிவு வேண்டும். On behalf of Nilgiri College family, I record our deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to welcome you to our NEP conclave. Welcome you, Professor. It is a wonderful to see such amazing gathering in the Zoom platform. I welcome everybody with all my pleasant greetings. I sincerely welcome our respected panelist delegates, Professor T. Mohan Babu, our academic dean of Nilgiri College, Professor K.V. Umarul Farooq, former principal, WMO College, Wayanad, Registrar, Malayalam University, Assistant Professor of English, Farooq College, NSS Program Coordinator, Calicut University, and also our beloved Mr. Magesh K. Suresh, Research Associate, Zurich, Switzerland. On behalf of Nilgiri College family, we wholeheartedly welcome our panelists to the global conclave. It is a happy moment to welcome our beloved Secretary and Managing Director, a lovable leader to everyone in all walks of life is none other than our beloved Rashid Ghazali sir. We wholeheartedly welcome you, sir. I welcome our principal, Dr. Durai Muttarasan sir, for this conclave. A sincere welcome to all HODs of all departments, and special thanks and welcome to Dr. Abdul Razak as the program convener. I also welcome all our faculty members, both teaching and non-teaching, Executive Secretary Mr. Hasim, PRO Mr. Umar, HR Basil Baby, and our digital team Mr. Newman and Mr. Amal. Warm welcome and thank to the parents and their ward, alumni, guests in the online, press and media who are present in the conclave Legends Meet. Once again, I welcome each and every one of you who are present to grace the occasion. Thank you very much. Jai Bharat. Over to our Secretary, sir.
Thank you very much. As we are running short of time and the Honorable Vice Chancellor has given a couple of minutes to be with us, so we are cutting short all the formalities and we are entering to the function and to listen our Honorable Vice Chancellor. I welcome the principal, Dr. Durey, sir, to give a brief profile, because introducing him, it will take much time, because he is that much a legendary contribution to the education community. So can you please give a brief profile for, because almost 500 delegates are there in this venue. So all will be eager to learn more about our Vice Chancellor. Thank you.
I think better I will introduce myself. That will minimize the time.
Yes, sir.
Is it?
I am Dr. Kaliraj.
Thank
I
you,
am
Professor.
Dr. Kaliraj, Assistant Vice Chancellor of Bharatiya University. I born in a small village. I did my BSc from a small town. I did my masters in biochemistry from Madras University. Then my PhD from Nagpur University. I was in industry for 6 years. Then I was in Anna University at various capacities, starting from visiting faculty, reader, professor, director, dean, member of the syndicate, member of convener committee, officiating vice chancellor of Anna University. Then I was ICM or emeritus medical scientist, and currently I am the vice chancellor of Bharatiya University. I was fortunate to have a few awards, and everything is available in the website. And many people might not be bothered about anything. Whoever is interested, they can always look into that. And today, I'll straight away start about new education policy. If you just look into new education policy, now everybody is talking about new education policy. If you just look into any website, in any university, people talk about new education policy 2020. And lot many information you might be gathering from all the universities, all the webinars and all. Today I'm not going to talk about what has been told in the Education Policy 2020. I would like to tell what you can adopt from New Education Policy 2020. Now, what is the ultimate aim of new education policy? There are some places in our country, the GER is very less, about 10% or even less than that. Now, Tamil Nadu, we have the GER of 49.5, whereas the new education policy, they would like to have more than 50 at the end of the new education policy target of 2035 or so, within 15 years. Now my question is, as such we are in 50 GER, what is our policy? Are you happy with what you are having it right now? Or you want to improve? In what areas you want to improve? And how you are going to make this national education policy suitable for the students of Tamil Nadu? Now, question of even our government is, what is the strategy of implementing national education policy? Are we going to take the government of Tamil Nadu policy as a role model and following it by adopting the best possible things in national education policy? Ultimately, the national education policy vision is, the pillars of the policy are access, equity, quality, affordability and accountability. This is the major things. Everyone should get the education, and ultimately it is aimed at producing engaged, productive and contributing citizens, and the education has to reach the society. How it is going to reach the society? We have to develop the curriculum in such a way that our students are employable, and they have to learn whatever the important components, they will make them competent for more than one field. National education policy is giving a lot of opportunities for that. And what are the outcome of pillars of national education policy? Number one, learning, that we are having it now. The policy gives relearning and lifelong learning process. It is giving the opportunity for continuing education. Then the most important thing is rigidity. In all our university system, if you are enrolled in Nilgiris and if you come down to Chennai for some important thing, if you are not able to go back for one semester, you are losing one semester. So the policy is giving the flexibility, credit transfer system. And in Bharatiya University already we have introduced the credit transfer system among the affiliated institutions of Bharatiya University. Now we are going to have an MOU with all the universities of Tamil Nadu for the credit transfer. A student can take the subject in any one of the universities and the credit shall be transferred. That will happen within 1 year. The government is very much keen to go for that. Then, holistic and multidisciplinary. You can ask the question, what is multidisciplinary? Are you going to have one medical college, one engineering college, one law college in Bharatiya University? It is not possible. Then what is multidisciplinary? What we are having right now is a multidisciplinary. We have computer science department, we have the environment department, we have the biotechnology. Biotechnology is giving a long way and opportunity for the medical sciences related to the biotechnology. And they work with the medical scientists. We have MOU with n number of hospitals and healthcare industries. What are the need of the people, paramedical workers needed for the medical college? So that is an opportunity for entering into the medical field. Similarly, for engineering, we have the vocational courses that you have to have it along with many institutions, MSME and various other institutions who are involved in engineering activities. Then knowledge, the users of knowledge, we have to make an education institution into creators of knowledge, and more than the job seekers, which is very important. Everybody will not be able to become the entrepreneur, but we have to see most of the students have to be converted into job providers and job promoters. The type of job that you are having it now is not going to be there after 3 years. The type of problems that we are having now, it is going to be different after 3 years. So we have to make our students prepared for everything. And if you just look into the higher education, you have the quality university and colleges, how you are going to maintain the quality university and colleges, how you are going to have the institutional restructuring and consolidation, holistic education, and so many things. It will be very nice to read, but how we are going to have it? We have the history of deemed university, deemed to be universities, or all the deemed universities are doing well. Is there any deemed university they are misusing the powers? What will happen if the deemed universities or any academic institutions are going to misuse the powers? A day will come only when you are going to create the students who will be useful to the society, who will be getting the job. Only such educational institution will be having sustainability. All the other institutions will get vanished during the course of time. So one has to take the good thing of national education policy to make the program highly successful by way of translating and transformational, transformational programs in such a way the students will be in a position to take up any new challenges and creativity. Look into the quality universities and colleges, and it is a new and forward they are looking the vision of higher education of our country about new education policy. The establishment of new research foundation is going to be very much helpful. Now the question is, the government, each state has to work with the central government, how they are going to adapt themselves to each one of the states. It says that large multidisciplinary universities and colleges with at least one in every district. Is it feasible? Or at least we should have the cluster of colleges or the cluster of industries joining together with the colleges. So all these things are going to happen. The industry has to be incorporated. The industry has to be involved with a large number of institutions joining together. When the student is doing the course, he should be in a position to know what is the need of the industry. And today morning we had a webinar, why the industries are not interested to go nearer to the academic institutions. They are scared of academicians. Are they going to be happy with academician? Now the time has come, the academician has to work with industries in all the things, including economics or commerce and industry. For each one, the industry is different. And they have to work with them and they have to change the curriculum in such a way that it will be useful to them. The institutional restructuring and consolidation has already started, and there will be the research-oriented one, then teaching-oriented one, and the one which will be doing only the affiliation. Now, there will be a great confusion. What will happen if the students are not accepting the degrees offered by the individual academic institutions? As per the new education policy, they permit the new institute to deliver their degrees by themselves. And are they competent? Are they confident? Will the student accept it? Yes, they are going to accept. If you are going to get the job without any problem, if you are getting the degree from Nilgiri College of Arts and Science, students will come to you. For that, you have to equip your institute in such a way the restructuring should be based on the multidisciplinary. Again, I would like to tell, multidisciplinary doesn't mean that you should have a medical college, you should have a law, you should have whatever the paramedical or para-engineering courses that you need, that has to be incorporated by way of adopting the vocational courses or job-oriented certificate courses. In Bharatiya University, we already introduced the job-oriented certificate courses, vocational courses, and add-on courses as per new education policy. It took a long time for me to convince our Board of Studies. Board of Studies, they are very particular. We have to get the member of Board of Studies or chairman of Board of Studies only by our seniority. When you give the assignment, then they find difficulties. So I have put a university representative to join with our Board of Studies. I am very happy to inform you the outcome-based education has already been prepared, not only for Bharatiya University PG course, even for UG program and PG program of affiliated colleges. And it will be liked by all of you. I am extremely happy to say that this is the only university, the affiliated institutions, they are very keen to accept the modernization of education that has already been done. It is not because of the pandemic, it is not because of your national education policy introduction. Even before introducing the new education policy, when it was in the draft stage, our Honorable Chancellor of Tamil Nadu, he wanted to introduce Education 4 and Education 5 in all the courses we have introduced. And we have introduced artificial intelligence in English. Then we have included most of the big data analytics in economics and statistics and all the components. And both in the core subject as well as the university is very much keen to help the institutions to implement most of the good things that we can take it from new education policy. Then holistic education that I told. Then the major reforms in higher education. This is a one where people have the doubt. Many people ask the question when there was a debate about a program of 3 years or 4 years. Certificate, diploma, PG diploma, degree. It is not necessary that you have to adapt everything with their nomenclature. You have to adapt yourself what kind of course you are having. Suppose you are in, I'm giving the example of Nilgiri College of Arts and Science. 1 year you give a certificate program more relevant to your nearby places along with your language courses. Let it be as a certificate course. And second year you add more things. Let it be a diploma course. And third year you can give as a degree. Then the 4-year course is also not new to the things. So we were having the program, if you are doing 4 years, you can give dual degree. They can do one course on commerce and with additional with the computer application in the 4th year. Like that you have to have it. Then somebody was questioning, one of the students, how it is possible to go for certificate course first year, diploma. It is not necessary that you have to discontinue after first year. Nobody is asking you to discontinue. This is only for those who are not able to continue the studies after first year. Take for example, a lady is getting married and she has to leave that particular place. Okay, let her go with certificate and let her go to some other part of the country and join in a program and get some credit. Let her get a diploma program, and after that, let her go for the degree program. And this is not going to have it for 100% of the students. It is only for those who are not able to continue the studies. It is simply to, avoid the dropouts. The dropouts can be avoided only when you are having the flexibility of giving those things. Then PG program 1 year or 2 years. In all foreign countries, especially in UK, 1 year program is very popular. What they do is, they give 1 year PG program and they strengthen their PhD program. And they have the MS program in between. And 5 year integrated program, it's not a new one. We are having it in most of the places. And it is not necessary that you have to adopt everything. Whatever the degree suitable for you, you have to adapt. And we need not to get panic. Okay, it is coming 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's not like that. You know we are having 4 years program. You know we are having 5 year integrated program. Then MPhil to be discontinued. There was a time the MPhil was introduced when there was a shortage of PhD and there was a need for introducing MPhil. They will learn some of the methodology which is needed for the PhD. Now nobody is telling that you have to delete MPhil. You can have it for some more time. After we are getting enough number of PhDs. I'm very happy to tell that Bharatiya University is producing a large number of PhD students with very good quality. And many universities in others outside Tamil Nadu, they find it difficult. And it will take time for them and they are going to adopt many other things. And the credit transfer that we are having is going to help. Right now it is within the university and after that within the Tamil Nadu. Then academic credit banks, then model multidisciplinary education research university, which is going to be adapted, and it all depends on the government policy and how much funds we can allocate for that. Then the major reforms in higher education already started. One of the important things is internationalization of education. We recently started a blended program with Melbourne University, that is in the early stage. Then we also started program with Canadian University. And with all this globalization, acceptability of the online courses by Government of India. You already applied for conducting the online courses. The government is very particular, UGC is very particular. Most of the universities who are having the NIRF ranking less than 100, all the universities in Tamil Nadu, they are eligible to start online courses. The advantage of the online courses is you can have experts from various other countries and there is no boundary for that. And there will be revenue sharing also in a best possible manner. And you have excellent faculty member. It is not necessary that my faculty member should be only in Bharatiya University. I can take a best possible faculty member from your Nilgiri College also. I can take it from PhD. I can take it from Madras University. And you already applied for that. And the structure of the faculty members for the online courses are much different from what you are having it now. There is nothing like 1:10 ratio, 1:15 ratio, all those things will go. A day will come, the online courses, especially for the non-laboratory courses, it is going to be very popular and a student can do with the affordable cost with international education. We can join with any one of the universities in the top 100 ranked university. And today Bharatiya University has crossed the barrier of crossing 1,000 and we have come down to 81 of Times Higher Education ranking. I am very proud to say it is not only because of our Bharatiya University department, it is also the continuous effort and support of affiliated institutions. And setting up of a new quality higher education institution, it is happening in many parts of the country and definitely we will be making use of the things in all our university system and also for our affiliated institutions. Now the gross enrollment ratio, as I told, right now we are having 49.5. And we have to go at least with a target of about 70 to 75. That should be our goal. But this is the gross enrollment ratio of the higher education of the government. Now, that's why I told, what is our goal? Are we going to make the education system The best education system, best university of Tamil Nadu, are we going to take it as a model to government of India? Now, towards a holistic approach, I already told you, an academic bank of the credits, the government is working on that. Here we need the clear-cut strategy of the government. What kind of strategies you are going to have for the academic bank of the credits? When you are getting the academic credit, when I'm giving the degree by taking the academic credit from other universities, are they going to accept in government job? Most of the time, there is a problem of equivalence. And MSc Computer Science is not equivalent to MSc Computer Application, and so many things are there. And the government has to come forward to give importance for this academic bank of credits, and also the educators and students should realize this the government job is only 1%, and you are having the opportunity of about 99%. So definitely we can go for any one of the branches, and you have the flexibility of learning more and more. If you are having computer science, you have the accessibility for learning more of commerce, you have the accessibility for bioinformatics, accessibility for learning economics, and ultimately it has to go for the multidisciplinary approach. And today, Nobel Prize equivalent, which was given to Abhijit, and this is for the innovation of economics. What kind of economics? And it is not economics, economics award. This is for the multidisciplinary approach of medicine and economics. He developed the strategy of, if you are giving the deworming medicine to the developing tropical countries and developed countries, because of worm infection is very important thing, which is giving a lot of problem, and it is giving a lot of morbidity, and it is bringing down the economic growth of the country. So he made the strategy. The WHO has adopted the strategy of free medicine, deworming medicine to the developing countries, which has improved the economy by reasonable, statistically significant percentage. The Nobel Prize was given for this interdisciplinary research of medicine and economics. And today the education has to be taken to the society only by the other people, the social workers, economics, then Department of Linguistics, Department of Statistics, and so on. And the multidisciplinary approach is very, very essential for that. And the university is giving a lot of importance for that. Now, optimal learning environment and support to the students. You should have the best possible board of governors. And all these board of governors, governing body in most of the colleges, it is only a matter of formality, and most of the time the college will send the invitation one day before the meeting, or it will reach after the meeting. I request all affiliated institutions, you have to strengthen your board of governors. It is not necessary that it should be the higher education institutions. Even your board of studies are very important. You put the best possible people. It is not necessarily only the people who are going to have the very brand name. The person who is able to work with you will be able to work for your institute, which is very, very important for you. Then there are so many key factors which is available: scholarships, revamping. Then the question is, what is a policy of reservation? These are the ones the government is working out with central government for implementing the new education policy. Each state, they have their own policy in terms of reservation, and the growth of the state is very much relevant to the education to the rural people and education to the underprivileged people and all those things. And all these things have to be worked out by the state government and central government. And we, the academic institutions, we are stakeholders, we are responsible for working with government to prepare the best policy adaptation. More than the NEP 2020, I call it as a NEP 2020 adaptation. Then, the activity of National Research Foundation, they would like to have a single umbrella who is going to have the funding. Now, are we all going to get the funding directly? Who is going to get the funds? If you are having the good project and if you are having the good funds, the funds will come from the any central government or state government if your project is very good. No good project will be rejected by any government agencies. It is not necessary that you need not have to bother that you are affiliated institutions or something like that. It all depends on how you are working. My experience in terms of getting the funds is, if you are not strong enough in your area, you join with other academic institutions who are having good academic support, academic excellence. Your college, your Nilgiri College of Arts and Science, you can start collaborating with any one of the institute like us or IIT or Indian Institute of Science. And if you are having a good project, people will be happy to come down and work with you. And your climate is more suitable for many people. And people will try to come to your Nilgiri as much time as possible. Even morning we have a webinar, we have the plan to have one of our program of new education, means your cyber security course, our meeting in Nilgiris. So you have the accessibility. It is not only Nilgiri institution, any institute. If you are selecting right kind of partner, and many funds will come to any academic institutions. And I'll come to the end of Bharatiya University. I would like to claim ours is a multidisciplinary. I don't have a medical college, but I have the science department having medical activities. We have a medical physics department, and medical physics department having the link with 10 hospitals. And we have a biotechnology department, bioinformatics department. They have the link with at least 15 industries having the biomedical research and 15 hospitals. Then we have 40 departments with 133 affiliated institutions. And I am open to all the affiliated institutions for the academic research and for the blended program with the foreign universities and joint PhD program, blended UG program, blended PG programs, and everything is going to happen within 1 year. This year we have started the outcome-based education system, and I want full cooperation from all the affiliated institutions. I would like to tell our NIRF ranking. Consistently, in university category, we are coming 13 to 14. In all India level, overall category is 21. That is because of the strength of my faculty members. And for a long time, the university was not bothered to go for world university ranking. They were a little bit scared. So I told the faculty members, when you are consistently in the NIRF ranking of 13 for the last 5 years, definitely you are eligible to come for that. In world university ranking among the Indians, we are 19. And in the world ranking, only 1,500 universities have been listed for world university ranking. And we were able to cross the barrier of 1,000. We have come to 818. That is because of the academic structure, as well as the faculty members, and also the full support of my affiliated institutions. We have several things, I don't want to tell much about that. And the most important thing is Industries 4 and Industries 5. And this is a vision of our Honorable Chancellor. And the meeting happened in your place in December 2019. Honorable Chancellor, before the pandemic, he called for all the Vice Chancellors of Tamil Nadu. And we have been taught. 3 days we were students in Raj Bhavan, and morning 8 o'clock to night 8 o'clock. And they prepared the strategies. How to improve the quality of education in Tamil Nadu. And in January itself, Bharatiya University was the first one to give the roadmap of Bharatiya University for the next 10 years. What we are going to do? The current strategy, the current position is with the NIRF ranking, the parameters. How we are going to take it to 2023? Of course, I might not be there, but I have to plan the strategies for how it has to be there in 2023, 2026, and 2030. And this roadmap, I would like to prepare for all the affiliated colleges. If you are all interested, let us prepare the roadmap for the next 10 years. And how we are going to be there. New education policy will take a long time to completely introduce, but you have to adapt. You have to take the good part of new education policy to be adopted. I have not told A to Z of new education policy, because whatever the things we can adopt for new education policy. In the new education policy, in the last one they told, by the time we were completing new education policy, That time only the Industries 4 and Industries 5 have been highlighted, and one has to give importance for that. We started giving the importance of Industries 4 and 5 component even before introducing the new education policy when it was in the draft stage. And it all depends on our affiliated colleges, how you are making use of that. I have given it as a elective subject, otherwise there will be a lot of opposition. It took long time for me, tough time for me to prepare the syllabus, because the Board of Studies member, they are used to the old way. I'm sorry to say, in one subject, that is in commerce, they have put what has been abolished, GST has come, and they wanted to teach what to the students. So the university representatives, they joined together and they made the syllabus perfect. I don't say it is number one in the world. I want to improve it. You adapt it. You just tell us what are the improvement we have to do it in university time. We will change it. We can adapt and change the curriculum every 6 months. That has to be there to meet the challenges in the system. So here I would like to say, these are the components of our Industries 4. The Internet of Things, Artificial Intelligence, Augmented Reality, Cloud, Cyber Security, Big Data, Mobile. All these components are there in your UG syllabus or PG syllabus in one way or other. You might ask a question, do we have the capable teachers? You need not to bother. You organize online classes with us, and we will prepare the online classes to train the faculty members and also help the students to get into that. Right now it is elective subject. If you all agree, I will make it as a core subject in economics, in commerce, and all the other subjects of our things. So we have a lot of challenges and we have so many opportunities. We are all there, and we'll be able to make educational system, the new educational system, to reach the society with these elaborate words. I'll be happy to inaugurate the Global Virtual Conclave on New Education Policy, organized by Nilgiri College of Arts and Science. I might not be able to continue in the panel discussion. We have few other programs. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thanks a lot, Professor.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Sir, indeed, it was an eye-opener presentation. In spite of your busiest schedule, that you made possible to prepare and present an elaborated presentation on NEP and the further steps which has been taken by the Bharathiar University. And we wanted to thank you and just present our token of gratitude and appreciation for your time presented here. As you are already intimated, you won't be available to continue for the question answer session or panel. We take this opportunity just to thank you, because we always believe that vetri vandal panivu avashyam, tholvi vandal porumai avashyam, and edurpu vandal kanivu avashyam, edu vandalum nambikai avashyam. I have seen such kind of a patience and respect and courage and confidence in you while you leading the entire activities of Bharathiar University. So we believe that we are highly privileged to be a part of Bharathiar University. So especially under the auspices of your leadership, after your arrival, that the things are becoming that much faster. And I can proudly tell all the 500 delegates, we are lucky enough to get such a leader to run the Bharathiar mission. And we were highly privileged, as he rightly mentioned, that he himself introduced the mission 2030 long before this NEP and other discussions which has been taking place in the higher education institutions. So that itself shows us he's the person showing us the way to go ahead. So thank you very much, sir, for your participation in today's conclave. And we are highly privileged, and Nilgiri College and Nilgiri family. And I wanted to share you that almost 500, we were only prepared for 500 delegates. It's been crossed 500, and we have made a Facebook Live for the rest of the audience who were in lane. So it's almost thousands of people were watching your program in the morning. And the NEP session, actually, we were actually worried that you told only few minutes will be there, but you made it fantastic with the extraordinary presentation. We owe you and for your time and for your dedication, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Love you, sir. Thank you.
So with your permission, we will continue the panel discussion. Yeah. We share the certification of appreciation and our gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor online. Thank you very much. Now we move on. So now we move on to the panel discussion. As we all are aware that we have got a wonderful introduction about the NEP and the present context and how it's been connected to the standardization or the qualitization of our higher education. Now the remaining time that we will be spending with the panelists, and they will be giving us some more insights about the topic which we have selected for the day 2. And I thank everyone for joining for day 1. And it was a successful event, and everybody has appreciated the discourse which happened yesterday. And today, the core focus of the panel discussion would be this: quality and standard of higher education with NEP context, and areas of focus and improvements for faculties and higher education institutes, and call for multidisciplinary learning and autonomy, and research and development, and futuristic interventions of higher education institutions. Thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, because he has given us an elaborated presentation on all these aspects. He was keeping justice to the topic. So it will be very easy for us to continue with the panel discussion with the topics being shared here or the agenda being shared. So I ask Professor Dr. Umarul Farooq sir, is one of the non-academician and a social activist, and the former registrar of Malayalam University, to begin with the panel presentation. Sir, please.
Yeah, respected principal and chairperson.
Welcome, sir.
And respected secretary Ghazali, Rashid Ghazali, and all the beloved students and faculty members. For want of time, I do not want to elongate my greetings and best wishes to all of you. So I would like to deliberate on the impact the new policy is likely to create on the students. I think majority of the participants are students. By this time, you know what is going to happen. You know what is existing and you know what is going to happen. And this is some kind of reorientation is there. Why this policy, everybody knows, because it has not been updated for last so many years, 2 or 3 decades. And moreover, post 90s, that is after 90s, tremendous changes took place in the world, developing the area of knowledge and the way knowledge is delivered, the technology, everything has changed, need of the world has changed. So there is a need for a different type of education system in our country. And that is why it is now necessitated. We know that. And second thing is that ours being a large young nation, the present enrollment of our youth for degree or higher level education is less, only 1/4. And that is to be doubled. That is to be doubled. And if that is to be doubled, there are so many things are to be changed. For example, now in our system, once a student joins for a degree course, he has to stay there for 3 years minimum. Especially this may be difficult for a good number of youngsters, particularly for ladies and all, who may get married due to this time. So some changes proposed there. So new education policy has very clearly brought forward multiple entry and exit policy. I hope the students must know it, what it is. Some people think that it is only a certificate course or it's only a diploma. No, nothing like that. Just now, Vice Chancellor has already cleared. This is a 3-year degree course itself.
நீங்க பண்ணி நான்
3-year degree course, of course.
Channel-
But now it is
channelize
made
பண்ணிருக்கோம்.
4 years.
sir.
Now it is a 4-year. Any problem?
No, sir. No, sir. You're audible.
Now, from the student's angle, they can remain a 3-year student, no problem. They are given more freedom and more opportunity by restructuring in the way of what we call multiple entry and multiple exit. They can join and can discontinue after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Now, degree course is made a 4-year one. That doesn't mean that they're going to spend one more year. They can stop at the 3rd year. When they go to 4th year, in earlier times, so years back, we had honors, BA honors. That was a 4-year course. Likewise, now they can go to 4th year, and the advantage is that when they go for the PG with that 4th year, they need to do PG only for 1 year. So same thing is there. So there is no change with regard to the students. It just gave them more freedom to manage their time. And also, one more advantage they have received is that there is what we call introduction of academic bank credits. Students can earn credits. Each year they can earn credits. And they can carry away these credits along with them wherever they go. It is just like Aadhaar card. You keep your Aadhaar card, you know. When you keep your Aadhaar card, the number of Aadhaar card will tell everything about you. Likewise, academic bank credibility system will provide each student one number. Wherever he goes, that number will tell what type of credits he earned. He earned a credit up to 1st year level, 2nd year level, 3rd year level, or 4th year level, like that. Every story of his educational activity will be marked there. It's a student progression tracking system. So in this students progression tracking system, what we call academic bank credits, you can earn credits from various institutions in different ways, and everything goes and get accumulated and you are assessed. So that is a great advantage that students are going to get. And also they have what we call choice-based credit system. Now, universities have already introduced choice-based credit system in India. You must have heard of it. In Kerala, we have what we call choice-based credit system. But there is no much choice there. There is no much choice there. Each college provides one open course, that's all. Even that open course is offered as per the availability in that college. For example, if a college has commerce, students can opt an open course in commerce. That's a very limited choice-based system is there in Kerala now. And of course, in other parts of the country also. But in the new system, students can mix their degree. That is the greatest advantage. A student in Nilagiri, what is offered in their prospectus. A student can decide what are the things they require. Whether they require some social work, whether they require some psychology, whether they can mix. They can earn credits. For example, I must say, so 12 credits may be equivalent to one course. So they can complete 8 or 10 or 12 courses, and they can earn 60 credits so that it will be considered major like that. But when new system comes, students will get total freedom to choose their subjects. It is their responsibility, and they are responsible for it, and they also enjoy the consequences. So that, of course, a student can shape up his own course. They need not bother some people sitting somewhere in the university chamber and deciding this is to be studied or that is to be studied. This textbook is studied, that textbook is studied, like that. So So that grand choice is there for the students. So multiple exit and entry, and also choice-based credit system, academic bank credit system, and also there is no doubt education, higher education will be highly privatized. Now, policies say three types of universities, research universities, autonomous universities, and just like colleges, teaching universities. They want each college to develop into higher position. The teaching university will grow into a research university like that. So they want to stop or affiliated college system. Affiliating system will be stopped. When affiliate system gets stopped, what happens is that more and more colleges will get autonomy. When colleges become autonomous, definitely college will be more eager to improve their quality. They'll be more customer oriented. Customer in the case here is student. In order to get better students, more students, they will update their courses. They will update their faculty. They will introduce more innovative system, and they want to go ahead. So, but the fear from the side of students is what will be the cost? What will be the cost? Whether these colleges may charge huge fees? No, no, no. Government wants a cap on the fee. That is there. They can collect fees with a ceiling. For example, if particular for some duration, one lakh is fixed, no college will be able to charge above 1 lakh. They can charge 80,000 or 60,000 or 50,000, but they may not charge above 1 lakh. So government is keeping an eye on it. So students need not be worried about the money they may be likely to pay to buy these courses. So from the side of students, new education policy is very much imperative and very much acceptable because it gives them grand opportunity to see the possibilities of the world outside and prepare themselves for them. The education, as we have already seen, that for holistic growth. This holistic growth means a student must be solve his own problem. Instead of seeking an employer, he must become an employer. He must be able to employ himself. So, employability means developing skills by themselves so that they become employable and they themselves become entrepreneurs and they may create more opportunity for others who are less educated. So, holistic growth in the sense is not only to develop for a student to develop himself into a fully acceptable and usable person, also to develop others. So actually, the fear of students regarding multiple exit and entry are baseless. Uh, there is no question of one going out just with a certificate or a diploma. If it is required, he is given that freedom. Just like our Vice Chancellor mentioned it. And he can move along with his ABC, that is credit bank, and just like in his CV, he can always add. And also there is scope for the development of faculty. Great freedom is given to, I don't know how far this freedom may get operated. I'm doubtful because great freedom is given to institutions and teachers. The teacher autonomy is a great fact, but of course, students may be scared of that teacher autonomy. Students may be scared of that institutional autonomy. Especially in Indian context, they are scared of a lot of other factors. But in a theoretical, in an ideological case, it is good, strengthen to take care of the students, overall growth of the students. We experience a lot of good teachers in our life, and because of them, that we are at this place. Likewise, more and more great teachers may come to help students. But of course, so many doubtful things may be there regarding the autonomy of a teacher. Teacher is given freedom to frame his own curriculum. and he can decide the course. So now, in our traditional university, a teacher sitting in Nilagiri College or Farooq College here, he's helpless because somebody somewhere, what they call board of studies, they decide everything. And these board of studies, the people in the board of studies, members of the board of studies will be trying to put in their ideas and their intellectual potential in the paper without regard for the students. Now, localized empowerment is there. According to the need of the people around in and Tamil Nadu, or let us say Nilagiri, the teachers in a particular for Nilagiri college or Nalagiri, they can create courses and offer to them. So teacher autonomy is one of the great things. So all these are aimed at getting rid of the rot system of our present system of making everything by heart and going and writing for exams like that. So thing is that we are not clear about how these are to be assessed. What type of examination patterns? These are yet to be decided. Now, new education policy is there for all of us to work on. These 1 or 2 years we'll work on, and we have to shape it up into real courses taken by the students and operated and used for the development of the country. Of course, we are yet not clear about how students are to be assessed, whether present examination system may continue, or they were what we call making by heart and writing answers for some questions, or be continuous assessment. But that are yet to be decided. I think that when we start operate all these kind of things. Anyway, government wants doubling the entry of our students to higher education. Government wants to give up the idea of dropouts. There is no dropout. Somebody keeps away from education, higher education field. That's all. Or if a girl is to get married during the second, she's not a dropout. After 3 years, into the need she or he felt. So such possibility is there, and all these fear about the autonomy of teachers and the fee, these kind of things. Again, when we talk about internationalization, a fear is there about the cost. But cost also will be regulated, and also students will be supported with various kinds of scholarships. Even now, there are a lot of scholarships offered by Government of India and various state governments, and also scholarships offered by various trusts and foundations, and scholarships offered by various countries. Our students are now using them. All these are being used by very brilliant students. That area can be strengthened so that students coming from lower area also can. Actually, when I don't want to prolong because for want of time, already I would like to answer questions when students ask whether there is anything scaring or anything problematic for them with regard to higher education in the new education policy. I don't want to tell more about what is there because yesterday you had already listened. I also was there as a participant yesterday when Wiley Lachan and the Dr. Baby spoke. So Baby has already given various steps of higher education, how it is restructured, what are new things to come, and then I just want to relate those points to how it is going to affect the students, whether they would be in trouble or whether they would be making use of advantage of these kind of things. Anyway, by liberalizing education in the form of giving more freedom to teachers and academicians, and also strengthening the governance of the colleges, just like VC mentioned, governance of college, governance of university. The governance aspect, and in most of the colleges, we can see governance part, we don't find much of the scholars there. We must be able to even utilize our alumni as part of the governance. So just like we have a faculty member today, after this session, I think there is one from Switzerland to join us. So likewise, each university, each college has to strengthen their governance by enrolling great faculty members or scholars from various walks of life. That is one of the area government wants to improve. Now, all over the country, we can see that governance part, especially of colleges, seems to be. And again, multidisciplinary approach. Now you can see the once a student is in science batch, he doesn't know anything about commerce or arts like that. So a new area gives opportunity for everyone to take, as I have already mentioned, they can mix. A student can mix his course. Just like we mix a cup of tea, how far sugar you want, how far tea you want, how far water, then you decide. Likewise, in course also you can decide. You can take these are the credits you would like to. Then problem comes how an education institution can manage this because these are the system in America, choice-based credit system, and these kind of systems are American one. In America, in a university, you can't see a professor appointed for lifelong. There, faculty members are booked when and were required by the students. How far we may be able to implement that type of thing here is a problem. In an American university, a student is given freedom to choose his subjects, and registrar of the university will book faculty members accordingly, and certain sessions are offered to them. And very rarely, in America, a professor staying in the college or university for more than 3 years. And even a college or university may not have affiliation for more than 3 years in America. So they have to renew it as per the enrichment they get. So that is why we come across American professors and European professors going around and doing research in our places everywhere. But that type of culture is yet to come in our Indian academic community. So we also may get used to that one in the future, I think that. Now government is offering a lot of opportunities for faculty members to improve. By making use of that, I think it also may change. Anyway, a total change is in the offing. We can accept it and we can keep away our apprehensions and we can accept it and we can try to change difficult things as and when it is just in front of us. When we have to address it, we may be able to change it. That is what I personally felt. I'm very happy about the new education policy throughout, from school level to what we call higher education level. A drastic change, a great change is offered for the benefit of the students and benefit of the country and benefit of the human being as such. And other apprehensions of our cultural or historical these things that can be addressed when we prepare curriculum. So preparation of curriculum is, I think, maybe moreover maybe in the hands of the teachers. So they can, from time to time, according to the regional needs and everything, they may be able to address it. That is what I think. Especially in higher education area, teachers or professors are at it, and they may be able to, for example, in Tamil Nadu, they can look after their own values and historical backgrounds of the area and may be able to help the student. Anyway, the change is very felt in need of the time, especially again, distance learning is very much encouraged. Distance learning, even now, as the professor, the vice chancellor mentioned, we have this problem of equivalency. We have the problem, but that is a problem when we go for Indian PSC and UPSC jobs. Otherwise, it is not a problem because, as we know, 95% jobs are in the private sector, and private sector they look into our academic credit bank. What are the credits that we earned? That is what they look for, and not as our UPSC or PSC guys look into. So Tamil Nadu has a number of courses, multiple with mixing of like that. We know the problem the students suffer. With this degree, when they go for a job, then problem comes. Just like VC mentioned, an MSc computer application guy may find it difficult to become a computer teacher, computer college teacher. So these kind of barriers are to be addressed, and they will be addressed by the time it gets implemented. I hope that within 10 to 15 years, the scenario will totally change. And open and distance learning is to be encouraged because students can earn a lot of credits through online courses. Wonderful online courses are there. Again, multidisciplinary issue of multidiscipline may be a barrier in the medical and engineering field. Particularly in medical field, I think that I am not blaming them, but seems that they seem to be a little closed community. A medical college, I don't think that a medical college will entertain a student of modern medicine go for an Ayurveda medicine purpose. For example, if a MBBS student is to opt for some credits in Ayurveda medicine, I don't think how far they may agree. Even now, modern medicine people don't accept homeo, Ayurveda, these kind of things. That kind of ego should go because, after all, in future, just like NEET, there will be an exit examination. Just like NEET is the entry exam, there will be an exit exam for MBBS. So, examination is getting out of the reach of universities now, or the entrance or examination control. Likewise, some mechanism may come. So, multidisciplinary approach and culture is to be accepted by everyone. And if a doctor, an allopathic doctor, is to have some idea about homeopathy or what we call Ayurveda, especially now where I am working, there's a Unani medical college. We find it very difficult to send our students for house urgency. In Kerala, particularly, they oppose. In Tamil Nadu, that much opposition is not there. So my students in Unani Medical College are not accepted by allopathic hospitals, government hospitals to do so their practical. They are not even given the dead bodies. That is the. So these kind of problems may be there. Multidiscipline is to become a culture among academicians. No academician should falsely believe, fallaciously consider himself as a master of certain subject and putting that subject above everything else. So whatever subject one has, one master, he must know that so part of the large universal knowledge. That's only just a piece, just a drop in the sea. So it must be enhanced by comparing and contrasting with other subjects also. So multidiscipline approach is most welcome. Students will be very happy about it. And even school levels, multidisciplinary, they can opt study some music or dance, and they can get credit. In colleges also, when a student goes for BA English, he need not completely sit for English literature. He can accept even dance or a music or translate. So students are going to become the center of academic purpose. So according to his needs, according to their needs, institution will have to tailor their infrastructure and also their governance and also their potential to lead the country. These are what I think that in this way, I think we may be able to. So government doesn't want to have some separation of the streams. So now IIM and this kind of higher level institutions started teaching humanities. I am looking towards a day where a medical college will teach engineering, or engineering college will teach some medical subjects. Medical college can easily teach some engineering because biomedical equipment management, these kind of things are there. these one or two professional levels are yet to be discussed and considered as part of this one. Now, our education policy doesn't say anything about these two or three highly professional area of higher education. How they are going to accept a multi-level approach and system. Anyway, it may come. We just started, and MHRD is now, they have already taken step. MHRD has become Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Education will sit down and they will deliberate on these kind of things and slowly introduce these kind of things. So one thing is that now last 2 months we have been discussing vibrantly, all over India discussions are going on. But this discussion would have gone a year back when government presented the draft. Government had presented a draft and given time, 2 or 3 months. 2 or 3 times they extended the time. But only some organizations, these kind of organizations who are scared of coming changes, approach the government and given their views. Academic community as such, as we are discussing now, discussed this 1 year earlier and presented more ideas. Government would have come out with clear-cut things. Now they came out with only 62, 63 pages of policy. Of course, this will be elaborated, it will be added, and it will be enhanced through discussions like this. So I request students to participate and also teachers to participate in these deliberations and discussions so that government may be able to implement it with a clear idea and with a purpose. With these things, I would like to conclude. And I am more interested to answer your question regarding your apprehensions or fear about implementation of this book, implementation of the education policy. Anyway, within 15 years, by 2040, though people like me may not be there, I dream that there will be a country which is robust with very dynamic, educated people, and our colleges and universities turn out to be the real center of production and generation of knowledge, and having more say on the applicable aspects, applied aspects, so that our country definitely will become the leader of the world. With these few words, I would like to conclude my presentation and wait for your queries. Thank you very much. I think I have patience
for the panel talk. Actually, he has given us an idea, supplementing the Vice Chancellor's the presentation, and guiding us to the implications which will be happening in the higher education, especially, and the advantages which we all are going to take in the development of education. So it was actually an interesting presentation. So as he rightly mentioned, we'll go for interaction, but before that, we'll listen to one another panel expert. He is one from our family even, and he is our Dean of Academics. He is a well-known academician, and he has years of experience in the higher education, and serving last 3 years as the Dean of Academics in Nilgiri College, Professor T. Mohan Babu sir, and he will also enlighten us on the idea of standardization, faculty empowerment, and so on, in the backdrop of NEP. And after that, my dear friends, the forum will be open for the Q&A. And I wanted to assure you that as yesterday, we will be winding up the program by 1 o'clock, including the question and answer session. So I invite Mohan Babu sir for the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Respected our MD, Rashid Sari, sir. Our twin Durais of Nilgiri College. Yeah. Then our faculty members and Omar Farouk, my good old friend, and he was the principal of a nearby college when I got connected with him when I was the principal in another college. And my listeners, Mr. Razak, and all the colleagues from Nilgiri College. Now, it's only natural that the stakeholders will have anxieties, apprehensions, problems when a new change is introduced by the government or by the societal status. So that is what is happening in our country now. A lot of things are being talked and discussed and debated about the new education policy. But I would like to see it in a different angle. This is only natural because changes on the anvil, and the stakeholders are just thinking how it will affect me, how it will affect us, how it will affect the colleges concerned, everything. So in this context, I am reminded of an incident which happened a long way, maybe some 15, 20 years back, when I was attending a conference convened by the then University Grants Commission chairman. I don't want to name him, the then chairman. The meeting was in Chennai. So people from different states, especially college principals, were selected to attend the conference. Just at the beginning of the conference, this UGC chairman, he started, telling us, advising us that, friends, you should see that your products are accepted by the society. This was the terminology that he used. Friends, you should understand and you should take every care in seeing that your products are, accepted by the society. Quite naturally, the audience, including me, we had a doubt whether he has, is attending a meeting of the industrial owners or he's attending a meeting of some other, forum, because all these great people, they'll be attending different meetings. They'll be having different, prepared speeches with them. I thought he might have, taken another paper instead of addressing the college principals. So to clear the doubt, I just asked him, sir, what do you mean by the products? You're speaking about products for the last half an hour. What does it mean? He said, you should know that the products of a college is the students. The students should be accepted by the society. Then alone, the society will be ready to accept your products. This was the terminology that he used. I was just reminded about it because the best thing that I appreciate in NEP is the change of the Ministry of Human Resources into Ministry of Education. The best thing, that is the best thing that I am accepting. Because ultimately, the NEP has decided to rename it as Education, which was the earlier name, because Education Department alone can include or alone can give leadership in the man-making process. I'm a person, repeatedly I used to say, education is not just producing graduates and postgraduates. Education should be the man-making process, the humanistic approach of education. I'm more worried about it. But luckily, I could see when I read the draft of the new education policy, I could see there are some ideas connected with that. The ethical standards, the communication ability of the students, the relation with the society around, the relation with the community around is given much importance. I think and I hope and pray that attitude will lead the education of our country to have a humanistic approach. That is one point which I am appreciating. Now about the research, when I read an article recently, it was a matter of wonder for me. In India today, per 1 lakh, there are only 15 researchers. Per 1 lakh postgraduates, there are only 15 researchers. Whereas in our neighborhood, China, they have 111 researchers per 1 lakh. Why we are taken aback? Why we are actually, standing at the bottom of this list? What I think is that so far we have conducted research only for the sake of research degree. So far we have conducted, especially teachers, they have involved in research just to get a promotion, just to get another degree, just to show it before other people. But we want to have more provision for socially relevant and important research, whether it is in arts or humanities or literature or science, whatever may be the subject. I am for that. The particular topic, I don't know whether it will be practical. The topic of research should be assigned to the candidate by the universities, taking into consideration the local importance, taking into consideration the necessity of the area. For example, today, a medical graduate, postgraduate who want to do a research, Umar Farooq sir can think about it. a medical postgraduate can do it, if he's ready to do a research, it should be about the ways and the methods to prevent COVID. Let him do that. And should be short living also. It should not be for a long period. Short time researchers, problem based researchers, arts, humanities, and in everywhere, in science also. So in our country, it was not the case. Everybody, there was a boom for research. So, I mean, what you call a great hunt for research, I mean, guides. Long back when I entered the society, I mean, the teaching career back in 1972, nobody was worried about research because you will not get anything extra, even if you are doing an MPhil or PhD. Nobody will give you any other what you call incentive. So what happened is when we are getting a job, we'll remain in the seat. We'll read sometimes. We'll not read. We'll go to the class and lecture whatever things we have collected in our school days or college days. So the situation underwent a great change, as Umar Farooq sir can well understand it, after the introduction of University Grants Commission pay scale for the college lecturers in our country. Everybody was hunting for research guides because a PhD will give them 4 increments. That is the only attraction, nothing else. Nobody was worried about the importance of the PhD that he has taken. Nobody was worried about the merit and the benefit that the society is getting when that person is taking a PhD. This is the reason why we are remaining at a very low level in the number of quantitative, the quantitative situation of these research degrees. Just 11, just 15, something like that. Whereas our neighboring countries having 1 lakh. So now we can encourage research in our country only by allotting, there is always a wide gap between vision and tasking. I know that, I'm aware of that. But my humble suggestion is to see that this particular PhD degrees that you are awarding should be beneficial to the community around. Such a change that I am expecting, I'm just, hoping that such a change will come. Forget about the degree, forget about the PhD about it. But how far this particular subject that he has learned and worked and studied is beneficial to society, then alone, higher education institutions will be performing their historical duty to the community around. Because this poor community around us is paying heavily for our education, for our post-graduation, for our PhD. They are paying, of course, through the tax. So what they are getting in return? They are not getting anything. You are getting a PhD. What they are getting in return? They should get something in return. That should be, whenever they are in a problem of their life, with your earned research degree, with your, with your knowledge, you should be able to help them. Then alone, the historic role of the higher education institutions will become relevant in history. Otherwise, there's no meaning, even if you are increasing the number of research degrees to 111 or to 200, it will not be beneficial to society. So such a change will happen only when there is a humanistic approach to the education. Such a change will happen only when humanistic approach is there. So I'm expecting that, that such a change will be initiated. Such a change will be brought through an amendment to the NEP in the near future. Or the higher education institutions will become the most wanted places for the community around to come and seek something like an advice for the problems of their life, to come and seek something like an advice for their economic issues, to come and seek something like a problem for their families even, because we are all educated people. So they are expecting that educated people can solve any problem in the life of the community, the people around. That's one thing. The other thing is, which I'm appreciating in the NEP, there is, of course, I'm appreciating because there is much importance given to languages. Very good, because languages should be taught. But we should understand that India is having around 22 active languages. They are not national languages, active languages, I mean. But when you go to a tribal area, somebody has quoted that example also, like Manipur or even northeastern states, the same place, in the same state, they are speaking more than 100 languages. So which language will be accepted by the government as the medium of education there? To which language they will be giving importance? That is hard not to crack. No, it's not that easy to give importance for all the languages. It's not that. And again, this is not compulsory. It's only mandatory that you should introduce local languages in higher education institutions. It's not compulsory even in school level. But when you make it compulsory, I think all the government institutions in the country will go for English as the medium. Whether it is in north or south or east or west, they will go for English medium. Because even now, the craze is there. And nobody will be ready to introduce Malayalam as the medium of institution or Tamil as a medium of instruction at the risk of student admission. Student admission will be very low, because I have seen many schools where the parents are saying that we want more English, nothing else. They are not bothered about the content. They are not bothered about the matters that the students are studying. They want more English, that's all. But English as a language is to be promoted. I do agree with that. But in a country like India, where you have multicultural status, where you have multilinguistic status, how will you select a simple language, whatever it is, single language as the medium of instruction in our institutions? These are the two important points. First point was make education more humanistic. Because I am reminded about my hero in history, that is none other than Gandhiji. Immediately after independence, he said India would go for education of the heart, not of the head. He said that too immediately after the independence, when we were given freedom from the British yoke, he only told that India should go for an education of the heart. He meant education for all the people, education with a humanistic style. That is what he was telling us, that a humanitarian attitude in education. Unfortunately, that has not come till this day. We students of history, like me and Rashid Ghazali sir, we all know that this is not the first change in education, right from Macaulay's Minutes and even after the Radhakrishnan Commission, and even after this, a lot of changes have come in Indian education. But in those days, in the pre-independent days, the aim of education was not to help you and me. The aim of education was to train a group of people who can help the British administrators in their work here. That's why we were taught English, not for our purpose. They were very particular about it. A group of people should be taught to help them in their administration just by giving them an opportunity for English education. And again, one more thing we have to take in mind is that they had a policy which they called as the filtration theory. Almost something like is coming, I am rather prejudiced about it in a way, or rather I have an anxiety about it, because with this new system, you cannot give education for all the people. It is pretty difficult. You cannot give education for all the people. And as the British people in those days, when they gave education for the few, they tried to justify it by saying that it is something like filtration. When the people at the top are educated, that will gradually filtrate into the bottom. The theory in history is not the filtration theory, but that filtration theory is not applicable today, because ours is a democratic society. We have become free. What is our primary duty? Our primary duty is to see that every individual is educated. One point that is relevant in new education policy is that the right to education is extended up to the year 18. Formerly, it was only 14. The right to education, you can make a complaint to the government that I want education, I am not provided that. Like that, you can make a complaint. So that is one point which I believe will solve this problem up to a large extent. And the government, through the NEP, has decided to double the number of education institutions. But even doubling the number of education will not solve the issue. Because even now we are having around 45,000 colleges and 900 universities in our country. 45,000 colleges and 900 universities. In spite of that, what is the percentage of people who are admitted to higher education? Just 26%. They want to make it 50. And how they can make it 50? Just by opening more and more colleges and universities. Is it possible when you are spending only 6% of GDP for education? The target is fixed 6% of the GDP for education. I'm worried about it. I don't think that it will be practical. That's why I told there will be a lot of difference between vision and tasking. So let us hope that, as Umar Farooq sir has rightly pointed out, the whole thing will come, or the whole thing will get materialized only by 2030 or 2040. In Indian scenario, you just think, which are the governments that are going to come? How many governments will come and go? The making and unmaking of the power, the corridors of power will be changed a lot. And our usual custom is that to change anything that is introduced by the previous government. That's a democratic custom in our country, though it is not well appreciated. So if another government can be ready to follow all this, I don't think. But for the time being, let us get adapted to what all changes that are coming. Let us appreciate all the good points of it, and let us try to correct the bad points of it, what we call the disadvantages of it. That's the only thing that we can do. I'm not personally against any change. Change is always better, because change is always being development. But I'm not opposing it. But the thing is, there are some certain apprehensions. As I pointed out, I am always for a humanistic approach. And this humanistic approach, I believe, and I would like to declare that humanistic approach in education is in Nilgiri College in our own way. In our own way. It is not rather prompted or, compelled by any other institution or any other higher body. We are practicing it, and we have the result of it. Bringing all the students, all the faculty, all the workers in the college to a single platform, under a single umbrella. Of course, I'm rather appreciating the role played by our management, and especially our managing director in that sense. So he knows that only such a humanistic approach can develop education. Education through love. That's what I want to tell you. Thank you very much. You can have your opinions, please.
Thank you very much. Indeed, one another interesting or inspiring speech that you have given, the fascinating inputs, which everybody will be very much eager to, will be very much interested to listen a person like you, because with that many years of experience in the higher education, and foreseeing the developments which is going to be witnessed after NEP. So it's quite interesting. And now we have another 10 to 12 minutes in hand. And this will be open for, as we did yesterday, 2 or 3 questions will be entertained. And you may please use, in order to save the time, please use chat box where you can reflect, where you can share your queries and questions, if any. And that will, our panelist members, members will be responding to it. Some people are asking about the recording of the workshops yesterday and today and tomorrow. Of course, you can keep in touch with the organizers. We will be providing you the outcome also of the session, which we will be preparing and publishing a note of the program that will also be circulated. And if required, technical team can support you getting recorded version of the program, or else that will be uploaded in our YouTube channel. That will also be intimated through your mail. And there is a feedback form where, if you're intended to get certificate of the webinar, every day we are posting the feedback form where you can fill your details so that the certificate also be circulated to your mail. So now the forum is open for the queries. Please come up with your own queries, because today we have got a wonderful presentation from VC and the 2 panel members. We'd love to hear it from you. Okay, one question came to the private chat. I think, Mohan Babu sir, it is to you. And you were mentioning about the quality of the research which is being doing by the faculties. And the question is something related to it. So what do you see that even in NEP context, how will you ensure the quality of the faculties in terms of the specific interest to be raised from the faculties?
Sir, I was not mentioning about the quality of the research, but I was mentioning about the practical side of it, how far it is useful for the society. Recently, even the University Grants Commission has decided to review, to reconsider, and to make an opinion about all the PhD degrees awarded for the last 10 years. Because they said, they have found out, they believed that these PhD theses were not useful for the society around, and it was not relevant also. It was all rather just for the degree sake itself. Even 10 years means it's a long time. They are going to review all the PhD theses submitted to the different universities in our country. So my concern is not about the quality. What is quality actually? Quality, it depends on individual, on societies, everything, on university also. For me, the quality is how far it is relevant in the in contemporary world, whether it is science or arts or humanities or literature. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
And, another question to Farooq sir. It is about, you were talking about the multidisciplinary and multidisciplinary. It's something related to that course, and specifically they are mentioning about the engineer. Farooq sir, are you there? There is a compliment for you, sir, Manva sir. You are
Yeah.
always humanistic. Great to listen you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sir, please.
Uh,
Yeah, sir, the question is something related to multidisciplinary. So you were talking about engineering college and medical college, which will be giving the topics related to the both areas. So I think the question is something related to it, and they are asking that multidisciplinary approach and the credit bank system, will it decrease the depth of the student on a specific domain?
yeah. Now, as per the choice-based credit system, one should earn 72 or 84 credits, Out of that, at present, 60 should be what we call major, and focused on the same topic. Okay? The rest according to the choice of the student. That is the present situation. In future, a student can opt any number. Of course, as you said, sometimes it may reduce the depth of the knowledge. Student may have a lot of, he may know a lot of subjects, but he may not be very deep in that subject. For example, if out of 80 credits, if a student is to distribute those credits for 8 subjects, definitely depth will be reduced.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That is why at the present system, they say minimum there should be some 60 credits for particular subject so that it can be considered as his major or his main. That's why. And of course, he can earn 100 credits or 1000 credits, whatever number, according to his requirement or the requirement of his society or his employer or whatever you call, or according to his needs. And if at the present situation, we say that a student must to get a degree, he should have some 70 to 80, 84 credits. And at present system, we say he should have minimum 64 credits in one subject. So which we call that is major. That demarcation will go if a student is given total freedom to choose some 10 subjects and to fill this credit. The point is that a student has to remain in 1 or 2 subjects for at least for a certain number of credits.
Omar sir, you know the story when this choice-based credit system was introduced in Kerala. Now, as you said, as you formally you said that this so-called open course was at the convenience of the college and not of the students. Am I right?
Yeah.
The students will be permitted to open course if it is available in the college.
Yeah.
Now the same thing will continue because suppose a student from Nilagiri want to study something about the northeastern states, the cultural diffusion of the northeastern states. So he'll be told by the authorities that no, that thing is not available here. You go for something else. And we were dividing. And also you did it actually for our convenience.
Exactly.
I'm afraid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the new situation, as per the new education policy, if a student wants to go to Manipur and study some culture, he must be given permission. He can go there and study wherever it is available, and he can add that credit to his credit bank and come back.
Then the college will be ready for that, to permit you to go there and to give you some lessons like that, some texts and some books and all. I don't think.
Sir, a college will, because that is the freedom of the student. He has to go and collect credits from any place, even from foreign lands. He can go and take it. When you are not going to fix his degree, one institution is not going to fix his degree. No, the degree will be fixed by the higher authority, not by a college or something like that. If a
Let us
student
hope
has
for the
a
best.
particular number of credits, yeah, that is what is expected. As you said, at present in the credit-based system, choice-based credit system in Kerala and in your place now, very limited scope is there. One has to choose
Yeah.
one subjects available in that college. Even then, available number of the permissible, no such limit will be
Yes,
there
yes,
as per the new. Yeah, but of
yes,
course that
yes.
is a problem. How to administer these kind of things? How to administer that will be a problem that the future we may be able to address. But student is given that freedom as per the new education policy.
Thank you
That
very
is what
much.
we call multidisciplinary.
Yeah,
That
thank you
is
very much.
ABC,
Sorry for
academic band credit.
Thank you very much. It was actually
Okay.
on another day with great interaction and highlights on NEP. And now we feel that how many days if we continue the NEP conclave, it will not end because every day when we go into deep, the conversations and the confusions and the clarity much required in different angle. And tomorrow also we will be having one interesting presentation from the one of the celebrated icon in the academics, that Dr. T.P. Srinivasan sir, and he will be focusing on the internationalization of aspects of NEP and how the global exposure can be linked with the empowerment of our future community and molding our future education in India. So that will be one of the wonderful presentation, and one key academician from the Bharatiya University, Dr. Vimala Madam, also will be joining us. Today, Vice Chancellor was telling about the university have started blended program with Canada and many other foreign countries. That the real the lead behind this initiative, that is Dr. Vimala. He is heading the extension departments, and she will be joining tomorrow. And this will be a very practical session that will be guiding us to the certain other areas of NEP. So I welcome you all for the last day of the conclave, Global Virtual Conclave. And it's happy to see that more than 500 participants were throughout for the conclave, and I appreciate everyone. And we wanted to see that the NEP discussion will surely come up with some more insights and interactions. And I've even updated that till October 31st, there is a room for presenting the recommendations for implementation on this NEP. So I hope that this Nilagiri conclave would definitely come up with a literature, and that we will present to the central government with the practical insights which has been highlighted through this presentation. And that will definitely play a big role. At least we will represent our ideas when the government is planning for an implementation on a larger perspective. So we don't want to prolong much, and we want to conclude at exact 1 o'clock today. Also, I wanted to share the appreciation and the gratitude from Nilgiri College to the beloved panelist and one of our the key speaker of today, Professor Umar Farooq sir. And though it's only possible now, it's giving all direct appreciations in online as we are sitting in the different places and attending the conference. And I ask the organizers to share the appreciation. Thank you, sir. Let's all give the big applause. Thank you very much. And I request our beloved principal for proposing vote of thanks.
Good morning, and it is almost a good afternoon. Thank you very much for participating in this wonderful day of day 2. I'm Dr. Durai Muthurasan, Principal, Nilgiri College of Arts and Science. I'd like to thank the honorable guest, that was Dr. Professor P. Kalirajan, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Bharatiya University, Coimbatore, and the panelist, Dr. Farooq and Dr. Mohan Babu, for their valuable presentation towards this day 2 things. And then I'd like to thank the secretary, Professor Rashid Ghazali, and my friend Dr. M. Durai for their participations. And also thank Mr. Magesh K. Suresh, who is a former research associate, Zurich, Switzerland, And I also thank all the heads of departments of various departments. And finally, the MOC, Mr. Mason Baby also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we hope you all will be joining tomorrow 11 o'clock for the last day. And I acknowledge the presence of our head of the departments, Denya Srimathai and Mr. Ranjit KV and Ms. Soumya PB and Physical Education Director Cyril Varghese and the coordinator of today's program, Dr. Abdul Razak sir. And I appreciate everyone for being till the end. Thank you very much. And we'll hope we all will meet tomorrow by 11 o'clock. Thank you.